Welcome, Ben Blackman, to the Autism ADHD podcast.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about a dad's perspective. And so you have two boys. Tell us about your boys.
So my older son, Jace, who is going to be a senior this fall in high school. And he's a guy.
He's a guy.
Some days he's pretty nice, and some days he's just not.
I hear that.
And then my other son, Evan, who does go to high school. He in the CDCA class that they have. He's 16. He'll be technically a sophomore, I guess, next year, but his name's Evan.
So tell me about your journey when noticing that something might be a little bit different about Evan's development.
Well, what I usually tell people is that, he was doing just fine, typical stuff. And over time, when he was, around 2, right in that area, right, he seemed to be talking less and spending more time like laying his head on the ground and playing with the train back and forth and that kind of thing. And part of the reason I thought that he was talking less was because his brother talked so much. I figured Evan just couldn't get a word in, kind of thing. But, it didn't occur to me that there was something going on. And when he was like right at 2.5, got him tested by the school system. And that's when they basically told me that he was autistic. And, that's kind of where it started.
What were your feelings about that? I know for people, some people have feelings of relief because they think, oh, I knew something was happening for them and now I have an answer. And some people also experience some grief or fear, those types of things. What was it like for you?
I think over time, I think all those things happen, right? In the beginning, probably just a little bit of shock. I remember I was working and I didn't know what to think, right? Because I wasn't really sure what it meant or what could be done for that matter. I didn't know very much about any of it. Random things that would come up that, but nothing, like I didn't have any experience there. And so I think that really though, the first thing that I kind of wanted to do was like, okay, what do I need to do to help him? Right. Like that was my first inclination. First thing, all right, what are we going to do to help him? And that's kind of the direction that I went. And I think that helped some, but I also think it delayed a little bit of the, of the shock of it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. So before that, this idea of autism, it wasn't something that you were that familiar with.
Not any more than what you would typically see. I mean, it's like anything else, in my opinion. If you don't, if it's not directly related to you, you're probably not paying a huge amount of attention to it. Like you might hear about it, but you don't have that, it's not like you're looking into it, right? And finding out what it's all about and that kind of thing. And so I didn't really do that. I mean, I didn't know any more than I didn't have any friends that had autistic kids. I didn't know any adults that were autistic, at least not that I know of, or not that I knew of at the time. I didn't know. So it was kind of isolating in that respect, because I was like, okay, now what do I do? Who can I talk to and that kind of thing. But frankly, I didn't know anything about it, not much. Of course that changed fairly quickly, but,
Yeah, I did a lot of
yeah.
research, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's what you do,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it is different to going through the school system experience. Can I do Jace is older.
Mhm.
And so you're probably didn't go to, a bunch of meetings for him, or maybe didn't communicate all the time with his teachers. So what was that like for you, kind of going through that different experience with both boys?
Well, yeah, so Jace, he um there was not a whole lot to do in that respect, right? He was just doing his thing, and I kind of equated it to me growing up and how, I went through school, and I mean, maybe my parents did talk to my teachers, but of course, where I grew up, we were all related anyway. So we talked one way
Okay,
or
so
another.
that's
That's
Kentucky,
in Kentucky,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So that, but then, and it, in my eyes, it's not like that I communicate with the teachers that much now anyway. I mean, maybe it is a lot, and I just don't see it as that much just because it's become normal, you know, but it doesn't seem like it's that much anyway. Um, and but nevertheless, it's things that have to be done. Like I had no idea what an IEP was, never heard of it. Uh, never knew about it. Right. And then, when you go to your first IEP meeting, that's an experience.
It's strange, right? You're kind
Yeah.
of sitting at a table surrounded by all these people.
Yeah. To me, it's very frustrating, frankly,
Right.
because you don't know what to ask or what to do. And, uh, you're kind of, or at least from my perspective, I felt like I was kind of at the mercy of the school. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah. And it is
yeah,
hard. And it's hard, like you were saying, your experience growing up wasn't the same. And mine too, right? I think once a year maybe he'd show up, or my parents maybe knew who my teachers were. I don't know, growing up in a small town, but there was
yeah,
never any meeting. There weren't, well, again, like you, like I
yeah,
know of anyway, right? Um, and it is a kind of a different experience, going through, with my boys, it's a little bit different that they're both pretty involved, both having, major supports in place and all those things. But it's definitely a different experience than just kind of dropping your kids off, or your kids going to school and then coming home.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a whole lot to it for sure.
I do feel like that I've been, really lucky insofar as I feel like the teachers that Evan has had throughout his school career have been really good and really helpful. So I've been really pretty glad about that. I will say that,
That is
because
really good.
I've heard, other people not say the same thing, and maybe it's just because I don't know any better, or maybe it's just because, I tend to look at the good side of everybody, and want to believe they're doing the best they can. I don't know, but either way, it seems like that.
Yeah, that's really good that he's had a good experience. And I think most teachers do, they are doing the best they can, for sure. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. So, with your experience with Evan growing up, what does he like to do? I mean, it may not be what you would consider, I guess, typical or neurotypical. So what does he like to do?
And it's funny that we're talking about it today, because I've uh, actually been talking to a group of people about it, people that, in my business, one of my clients works with a lot of health coaches and fitness coaches and that kind of thing, and I actually, we have a group, there, of with these people in it, and I posted in there about how I was, needed to get Evan more active. When he was younger, I mean, he'd jump all the time and run back and forth, and he would get plenty of exercise. That wasn't a problem. but now he doesn't do that as much. And so, I'm trying to relate that back to the fact that what he likes, it's hard to tell sometimes. So he loves to be on his tablet. And I say he loves it, but maybe he doesn't love it. Maybe it's just like that's all there is for him to do, that he's interested enough in to, so he spends a lot of time there, a lot of time. And frankly, that bothers me, even though I I don't seem to do a whole lot about it. I mean, we do things, right? He does like to swim. I taught him how to swim. He does like to be out and, go hiking and that kind of thing. But like hiking with him is a very slow process, right? It's not like a consistent pace walk. That's not happening. He likes to do things like ride in the car, and he wants to drive by the train tracks every day, just about, and we do. I just got a slip and slide, as kind of relating this back to, I was telling you about the fitness people and stuff when I was asking them. But I got this slip and slide that I put out in the front yard, and he goes out there and he'll go down one time and that's it. And then he's done for a few hours. You know what I mean? So, but he seems to like it, and for the most part, he seems like a happy guy. I mean, he's pretty happy for the most part. But I just wanted to say this. So in regards to the fitness health people I was mentioning, so I posted in there in that group that, I really needed some help thinking about what I can do for him in regards to exercise and nutrition. Personally, I mean, I'm a plant-based person, so I don't need any meat or dairy or any of that stuff. And I would love for him to do that, but that just hasn't. His mom, she doesn't eat that way. And while she does agree with me that, I would have to have her on board in order to make that work. And so I kind of resigned myself to the fact that I didn't want to have that battle. I'd rather just try to get him as nutritious a meal as I could, given the circumstances. And so I decided to start feeding him a paleo diet. And, that's just what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. And I actually order the meals now. I'm ordering them so they're pre-prepared. That's probably more information you want to know. But then back to the exercise part of it, I made out a list of all the things that we probably could do. But I was really concerned. I'm like, he's not getting his heart. I was telling them, the people in the group, he's not getting his heart rate up. And so something that came out of that from these experts and stuff is they all said, look, it's, getting your heart rate up. He said, but it's mostly about movement. It's mostly what it's about. And so, I actually came up with a whole list of things that I could do with him that gets him moving around, and he's still going to spend a lot of time on his tablet. I mean, I've had people say, well, just take it away from him. I'm like, you can't do that. It's a comfort thing now. I mean, you can't just take it away from him. So I'm not doing that. And it's unrealistic to think I could do that anyway. So, but the goal is to get him moving and doing other things instead of being on it. So I have like a list of things he's going to do, which, is kind of cool. So there you go.
That is really cool. And I hope that he likes it.
Some of it he does. Some of it he doesn't. If I will say this, he loves to be in the ocean. The waves, the noise doesn't bother him at all there, for whatever reason. But we'll go out into the water and stay out there for hours. And man, I'm worn out. Like I'm just,
I bet.
that's a lot. So I was thinking about, usually we go to the beach for a week, a year, or something like that. But I was thinking about I might rent a house for a month. In the summertime. I don't know if it'd be this year, but a month, that would be a month that he would be active every day. So I was thinking about trying to, to do things like that. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I agree with you about the tablet. Like you were saying, it's not as easy as some people think of just take it away. When, it's a source of comfort and it's something that he likes to spend his time doing. But like you were saying, coming up with other ideas. And it is hard, I think, a parent of a child who doesn't do a lot of movement, a tablet doesn't require a lot of movement, and trying to be creative and figure out, what's going to work for him and keeping him healthy. So I think that's a great idea, making a list. And the slip and slide, bring it back to 80s. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I bought one that was like high quality because, the slip and slides, you get one from Walmart, that's going to break in like 2 minutes. And so I got one of these high quality adult ones, and it's like 25 feet long. And, it's anyway. So far, of course, he's only been down at 3 times, but still, so far, it's okay, which is 2 more times than we would normally get.
Right. So it's like a once a day type of situation.
So I'm just leaving it in the yard for now, and we'll see how it goes. But just getting him active, and I hate to circle back on the tablet so much, but that's what he does. And the problem is so for me, I mean, it's easy for me as a parent to get used to that, right? And not break him out of that comfort zone or out of that. It's easier for me to get used to it because then I'm like, okay, he's on his tablet now. I can get this done and this done, and that kind of thing. But if I take it away from him, then you have to find something else to do, right? And it's not like most things will not keep his attention long enough or for any extended period, right? So we might, I might put little things out here for him to paint or craft or that kind of thing. But, most of the time, every now and then it'll go, say, 30 minutes, but most of the time it's a 5-minute, 10-minute deal. And you have to take that into account because, I love him and I love to spend time with him and I want to do time, but I also have other things that I have to require my attention, including my other son.
And Jace, right. Yeah.
So, I have to figure those things out, so.
Yeah, that's not so easy.
It's not. And it's and it's hard to get people to, I shouldn't say it's been hard for me to find people to watch Evan. But I haven't looked that hard either. In fairness, there's truth to that.
I think that's something, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I haven't really talked about that on the podcast before. It is not the same. It's not that you call up a babysitter. It's not like that. And it's hard for people to understand that don't have differently wired kids. I can't call up a babysitter. Once we had for a couple hours, a friend of mine who also has 2 neurodivergent kids watch the boys. And that's it. One other time, an old neighbor watched them for 2 hours that knew them really, really well. He was super flexible, super kind. But that's it. Right. So it definitely is something that I don't think the kind of typical public understands that it's not that easy. I saw some memes going around, which are kind of funny, and people are like laughing, like, "Oh, just call a babysitter." Like that's easy, that's like an easy thing to do or something. Yeah. It's not.
My parents, they live 2 hours away, and they're just really just at their age. I mean, it's not that Evan takes off. He doesn't. It's not like he goes out the door and runs. It's sort of wish he did. That way he'd get his exercise in, right? But he doesn't
in a
do
safe
that.
way, of course.
In a safe
right?
way. I know. I'm just teasing. So, but he but still keeping up with him is still, it's not easy, because, you have to think about, well, where is he? What's he into? And it's not like I'm going to call his name and he's going to answer. Right. I have to go see what he's doing. And so they would too. And so, that's a challenge. And then my ex-wife her mom can't, same situation. She's not that far away, but being able to keep up with him is a challenge. And just to kind of give you a funny story, my sister who actually she lives in Texas, and we were, she actually told me the other day that she wished that we lived closer. Actually, I told her I wish we lived closer, and she said, me too. She goes, I wish I could help you more with Evan. And I appreciated that. And her saying that, but she's watched Evan like twice. Right. And both of those times did not work out very well for her. It was pretty funny for me. Everything was fine, but both of the times were at the beach when we went to the beach together. And one of the times we went to the water park, the whole family and everything. And I had been watching Evan for quite a long time, and he was kind of fixated on this one area. Okay. And I'd been there for a long time, and she came up to me and she said, hey, do you want me to watch Evan? I was like, sure, go for it. And I walked back to where we were sitting down, and I did not sit down for 1 minute when she came running up to me. She goes, Ben, Evan's gone. He's
oh my
gone.
goodness.
And she's freaking out and just, freaking out. And I was like, hey, where's the ice cream? I'm like, and so went over to where the ice cream place was, and he'd walked out. He'd gone in, got some ice cream and walked out, and the clerk in the store ran out and said, he didn't pay for that, and my sister's
goodness.
pulling her hair out, freaking out. And and it, I mean, she was trying to focus on it. She goes, I didn't even turn around. I just looked over. And what's funny is, it's not like when I was over there, I was sitting there watching him the whole time I was there. I was looking around too, but I don't know, you just get a sense of it, and as a parent. And then ironically, the second time that she did it a few years later at the beach, my nephew, or she'd gone down the beach with Evan, and usually Evan would just wade in the water. Well, he started floating out to sea.
Oh no.
And my nephew looked at my sister and said, should I go get him? And she's like, oh my God, yes, and goes out there and so that's her. She has, some stress over watching him. Anyway, I know those were kind of long stories, but it's even the people that you trust and that you care about and that care about you and care about your son. And, it's not the same. They have to make an adjustment for how they're watching, Evan.
And it only takes a second.
It does. It's hard to explain anyway. Yeah.
Right. I remember when Christopher came to live with us. It was just a second. We were at Olive Garden, and I turned my head for just a second, and he had crawled under the table, across the aisle, up underneath another couple's table, and just sat with them. It was their first date. So I'm sure that was a great story.
That's perfect.
For them. I was, of course, freaking out. And then I just noticed that he was sitting with this lovely young couple.
And Evan did the same thing. We were walking at the beach. Ironically, I guess that 1 year was just a banner year for him. But we were walking out of the restaurant, and he grabbed a biscuit off somebody's table as we're walking out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's just,
those things happen. And then,
happens,
it's again, those situations that, a lot of parents are unfamiliar with, because to them it sounds outrageous. Right. But I remember Christopher sat down, we were at Burger King. And that was one of the things I would do every day, was take him to, when he was little, the playground in there. That was one of his favorite things to do, kind of, spin things and go through the tubes in a certain way. And he just sat down with a mom and their kid and started eating the kid's French fries. Right. I mean, they looked really good, even though he had his own. Maybe this kid's French fries looked a little better than his.
And
but I
go ahead.
But I think it's those kind of stories. I think it's good for other people to hear that they're not alone in those stories.
I think something that has occurred to me is that a lot of people out in the world are way more tolerant and patient than I think that they're gonna be. You know, when Evan's doing something, right? Like when Evan's being loud or something like that, you know, it's not that I care that, you know, I mean, that what other people are thinking per se, but I don't want him to be bothering everybody either, right? At the same time. And so sometimes that's hard. And so, you know, and most people, I do believe, are like okay with it, right? Because it's fleeting for them anyway. But I'll never forget, I was at the grocery store, and it was one of the days where Evan wasn't having a good day. And you know, we're getting ready to check out, and the whole trip in there was it was hard. It was one of those times. It was just really hard. And we were in the checkout line, and he got my debit card and shoved it in this slot in between the conveyor thing and the register. And they had to come out with a screwdriver, you know, and I mean, it's not like, and man, and Evan, he's still upset and everything. And I'm sweating. I mean, I'm pouring sweat, and I'm in his eye level, and I'm just like, you know, breathe, you know, I'm telling him to breathe. I was like, and, you know, we're doing this kind of trying to do this breathing exercise, and my face is red and everything. And the cashier was frustrated because of what happened. And I don't blame her. You know, I would have been too. And we went outside, you know, and I was walking outside with him, and he, of course, as soon as we get outside, he's quiet, you know. It's funny. And this guy came up to him, and he was probably about 20. He couldn't have been more than 21. And the last person in the world I would have expected to say anything to me. But he said, "Hey, man, you're a good dad." And that's all it took. You know, it's the kindness of people are a lot more intuitive and kind than
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little teary over
yeah,
here.
I did too. I broke out when he said that. You know, I needed to hear that, and I needed to hear that, you know, hey, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. You know,
That's so wonderful. And, you
yeah.
know, everyone who's watching or listening, send this to other people, to your family or friends. They know how important it is for us to hear that. You know, this isn't an easy journey. And I think just being able to get some kind words sometimes from other people are just the most amazing thing. You don't know how important that is. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm again getting a little teary over here myself.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of people who really care. Just like at Evan's school, you know, he has these peer students, a student peer, I forget what they call them, but basically it's just other students who come into the class in the CDCA to help. You know, they volunteer their time, and it's not just a few, it's a lot of kids. And I'm just thinking, you know, that, you know, when I was their age, you know, that's the last thing I was thinking about. You know, it's just amazing that their willingness to give and contribute and help. It's impressive, frankly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. They have that. They have something similar here in our county as well in some of the schools. So that's good to hear that they have that, because I also think, and you and I have talked about this before, that a lot of people don't have that experience. They don't get the opportunity to have that experience. I know, you know, back in the olden days when I was in school, we didn't have the opportunity. We were all separate. They didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, me either. I
Yeah.
don't even remember much in that regard.
Yeah. Everybody was just kept separate classrooms, separate areas, separate teachers. You know, no, we didn't get the opportunity to see anybody who was autistic. I mean, you know, everybody was separate.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that that's happening more. That's good. You mentioned something before too to me that he likes to jump too. And I know that's the case with my kids. They really like to go to trampoline parks and things like that.
Yeah. And so Evan, and that's one, when I was talking about exercise, and that was one of the things, because we haven't been in quite a while. COVID and everything kind of
Right.
put a damper on that to some extent. But even since, we haven't been. And when we go, sometimes he'll jump, but more often than not, what he does is he's fixated. The place that we go, there are these two humongous paintings of a set of cat eyes on the wall. And really they're set back way back and it like not in a place where you can like be up right next to him, but he doesn't care. He'll go around into the area where you're not supposed to go and stand right there and just look at it. And he'll spend his time focused on that. And it's really interesting to watch him just stay fixated on that. And so that's what he spends most of his time doing.
Yeah, so you must really like it.
He must. And, so I printed out they're not the exact same ones, but I found some, and then I made some pretty big copies of them and put them on the wall in his room, and not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same.
No, that's a good effort though.
Yeah. You don't know until you try.
That's true.
But then the other thing I was thinking about is as well, maybe it's good that he doesn't like them, because that gives him something to look forward to when he goes there. Like, it's not just another thing.
That's true.
So it's just like like there's things that he does at my mom and dad's house that I could have him do here, but I don't, because that's something he knows he gets to do when he goes there.
Yeah.
So
tell me about Evan and Jace's relationship. I know kind of sibling relationships can be a little bit tricky sometimes.
Yeah. And I, in the beginning, Jace seemed to just accept it and be very tolerant and patient, but he was little too. Jace was little. They're not age-wise, they're only about a year and a half difference. So, he, but, and I think, and I really believe that Jace feels like he got cheated.
Yeah.
Like he was, like he wanted a brother that he could play with and do things with, and he didn't get that, and I think that really bothers him. And so, over the years, Jace has really not engaged with Evan all that much, and for good reason, right? So I mean, some of it's for good reason, like, and because it's hard for any kid, like if you're trying to interact with somebody and they don't respond back to you, well, you're not going to keep interacting with them, and I've tried to explain to Jace, hey, he is listening, he is paying attention, and he is. I know Evan, looks up to Jace. You can tell, you can see that, but Jace can't have a conversation with him. Like the only conversation is him, Jace, telling Evan what to do, or yelling at him or something.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard for him, for Jace to, and Evan too. I mean, I'm sure Evan wants to be more than what it is. And one of the things that's kind of cool though, is, we were trying to go somewhere the other day, and we're taking separate cars, and Evan, he wanted to ride with Jace, right? Like he wants to be with Jace. And that's kind of cool.
That is really cool.
So I wish they had I wish it was a different dynamic, but it's okay. It is, and it's become better over time in many ways. So that's good. Jace gets frustrated though, because Evan's loud, he repeats things all, a lot, and that drives Jace crazy in many ways. But frankly, he really does a good job of handling it most of the time.
So, something that comes up often for all of us as parents is experiencing some kind of fear about the future. And I was wondering if you didn't mind talking about your experience. I know things are going to be okay. I know personally, like, it's going to work out. But as a parent, I think about, well, what if, what happens when I'm gone? What happens, what does that look like? Who's going to take care of them and make sure they're okay? And so do you have those feelings too?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, 100%. And it's a lot of little things that I worry about, like we were talking about the tablet. Okay, well, who's going to make sure these movies are on there when he breaks the next tablet and we have to get another one, and that, it's little stuff like that, but it's also the big stuff too. Right. And so, one of it's been a couple of years ago, but again, in my business, I get to deal or, talk with a lot of coaches, life coaches and health coaches and so forth. And I was on this group call with this life coach, and I was telling her, about my fears, my concerns and all this worry and exactly what you were just talking about. And she goes, well, most of the time what she would try to do is to get you to let that go. Basically, but what she told me was, she goes, I can see that you're not going to just let that go. She said, and that's fine. She goes, but the fact is you don't know what's going to happen. She goes, so why not half the time you think the best case scenario is going to happen? And then the other half the time you can think the worst case is going to happen. And at least give yourself a little bit of a break. And that made sense to me because I don't know what's going to happen, right? All I can do is plan and do the best that I can to set everything up the way that I think might work the best. And I don't even know that that's the best. And one of the things she said on there, which at the time, I don't think it really hit me too much because I knew where she was going with it. And, but she was like, she goes, so nobody else has ever loved Evan. Like no teachers, no people he's interacted with, nobody else loves him. And I was like, well, of course they do. She goes, well, why would it be different when you're gone? And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a different way to think about it.
Yeah. I'm like, there are people that do care, and most of the fears that I have, I'm sure are unfounded and not realistic. And frankly, scary. That eats me up to focus on that. But if in a more real sense, it's not like that either,
Right.
It's not, it doesn't usually, things don't work out like that, so anyway.
Yeah. I think that is good advice. So it's like, okay, you are going to think about it. So let's think of that he's going to be loved no matter what. You're absolutely right. So what would you, oftentimes in these spaces, you're going to hear from moms, right? We don't often have dads like coming in to talk about that. So what would you, before we jump off, what advice would you give to dads that have a differently wired child who, they're sometimes people are in the position where they're just learning about a diagnosis or they're suspecting that their child might have ADHD or autism. And, sometimes again, it's a journey and people are in different spaces within that journey. So what would you say to dads?
I think that when Evan got first diagnosed, I immediately found this program that was not part of the school curriculum or part of the school, but they were hosting like a series of meetings on it. And I can't remember the name. It starts with an H. I had these books on it and stuff, but it's been a really long time ago. But the thing that I walked away with was this thing called OWL, Observe, Wait, and Listen. And I think that was very important for me, because Evan, and I believe all kids, he is communicating. But the thing I didn't understand was, as I'm trying to figure out what that looks like or how he's communicating, right? So in many ways, he's just like another kid, right? He's gonna, push your boundaries and push your buttons and that kind of thing. He's going to do that anyway. I mean, so how do you separate that out from, well, this is part of being autistic, or this is just being another kid, And so I think that observe, wait, and listen was really helpful for me. And because when I would talk to him, I would immediately expect a response like I would. And then, so if I didn't get the response, and I still do it today, I mean, it's an ongoing thing, I would immediately ask again, or immediately say it again and again and again, instead of stepping back for a minute and letting him process that. Now, he might not have heard me, or he may not hear me. Okay. That's okay. Or he may just be ignoring me, and he did hear me. Right. So it's hard to separate those things out. But what I've found is that if I wait, give a little more time, and I'm a little more patient, then I get more of a response. So, so that's one thing that I think that is important, is just to kind of, observe what your child's doing, right? And give them a chance to respond in their way, not in your way, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
And so I think to me, that's important. It's establishing some kind of communication. And I think the other thing is to celebrate the wins, because most of the wins in my eyes are pretty small, right? Like, I mean, in the scheme of things, they seem small. They're not, but they seem that way. So like my neighbor came over, and I don't think Evan, I mean, I don't even know how he would know her name or anything about her, but she came over, and ironically, her older brother's autistic. He's like 40 something. Right. So, she has that life experience, which is kind of cool. But anyway, she came over, and Evan and I were sitting outside, and she said, and Evan was doing this thing, and I didn't think he was paying attention at all. And she goes, "Hey, Evan." And he goes, "Hey, Miss Carrie," just like any other kid would do it. And that's a win, right? To me, that's a win. And that's what it's about, is celebrating the wins and then stringing together, several wins. That's the way I see that. So, and the last thing I would say is give yourself a break. It's easy to be hard on yourself. Well, I didn't do this the right way. And I do that all the time. I didn't, I could have done this better or that better or whatever it is. But the reality of it is that we're doing the best that we can. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's really true. There's anything in life you could improve upon. I mean, anything. It doesn't have to do with this, right? You could do better. And this is no different. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about a little bit of consistency and being willing to do more, when you can. And this guy came over to the house the other day to help with something, and I gave him a little bit of a tip, and it wasn't much. And he goes, "Thanks so much." And I mean, I thought the guy was going to cry. I mean, it was like $3 or something. And I said, "Man, you're not even going to get a gallon of gas for that." And he goes, "I really appreciate it." I'm like, "Well, you just do what you can when you can, and I think that's true.
I think that's true too. And I like that you said that, because we definitely think about, I should have done this, or what if I did this? And And that doesn't really get us anywhere. You learn from your mistakes and you say you're sorry when you need to and forgive yourself when you need to. And just, again, like you said, do the best you can and just keep on learning. I think that's a really good thing to remember.
I agree.
So thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, please tell Jace and Evan I said hi.
I'll do it.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like this episode, please share it with someone. It may just be what they need to watch today. If you're a parent, I'd love if you came on over and joined our Facebook group, Autism ADHD Group for Parents. If you're a therapist or educator, come on over to our group, Autism ADHD Group for Therapists and Educators. You're going to find those links right down there in the notes. Thanks so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.